What does the future hold for the Washington Wizards and Houston Rockets? The John Wall Bradley Beal backcourt was among the best in the league. John Wall's slashing and playmaking abilities, combined with pure speed along with Bradley Beal's scoring and shooting abilities, made the Wizards a solid playoff team in the Eastern Conference. They made the second round 3 out of 5 seasons from 2014 to 2018, including the run in 2017 where they fell one game short of the Eastern Conference Finals, falling to IT Celtics. But this is where the Washington duo started to fall apart, and we had seen the last of them. In the 2018-19 season, John Wall had surgery on his left heel that would have him sidelined for the rest of the season. But just a couple of months later, Wall suffered a torn Achilles in his own home. It's been a rough road for Wall, and I'm happy to see him back on the court. On the other hand, in Houston, the one-season Westbrook-Harden experiment after the 2-season CP3-Harden experiment didn't work out as planned. After a disappointing 5-game loss to the eventual championship Lakers, the Rockets went into complete disarray with news of Harden, Westbrook, and other players being very unhappy with the team. After Bradley Beal's All-NBA caliber season, we heard rumblings of a John Wall trade. Apparently, the organization wanted to build around Beal. So with the Wizards unsure of how Wall would come back, and with Houston trying their best to convince Harden to stay, the two teams swapped Westbrook and Wall, creating a duo of Washington of Beal and Westbrook, and Harden and Wall in Houston. Both franchises were in positions where they really had to act fast, with limited time to keep the franchise from going under. And in my opinion, both franchises honestly did the best they could with this trade. Both teams still remaining competitive. Westbrook and Wall both requested trades, and their respective organizations complied not too long after. With the season inching closer and closer every day, I want to dive into my thoughts for both teams and their rosters. Let's talk about the Washington Wizards and how good they can really be. With Bradley Beal coming off his career year, the Washington Wizards should be very interesting in this upcoming season. With Russell Westbrook in Washington's backcourt instead of John Wall on the surface, the duos are the same. Beal next to a hyper-athletic point guard with great passing ability. Now, although Westbrook and Wall have clear similarities, they are not the same player completely, and neither is Bradley Beal when comparing him to his former self. In the 2018-19 season, we saw the best version of Paul George that we have seen throughout his whole career. He had his career-high points per game next to one of the highest usage players in NBA history. And although it was Russ's team, Paul George was empowered to be that main scorer. Russ is going to get his no matter what, but Paul George became the main scorer for the team. We saw PG-13's usage go up and Brody's go down. And this was much better for the Thunder because, again, Russell Westbrook is a natural playmaker. So PG needs to be empowered as a scorer to make sure he was also being maximized. So he also had enough time with the basketball in his hands, which is why he was third in MVP voting and almost averaged 30 points per game. Now with Bradley Beal coming off his 30 point per game season, we should see the same thing we saw in 2019 with the Thunder and Washington. Beal being empowered to score, not falling back into that number 2 role like he was in with Wall and that Paul George was in the first year with Russ. Now that we see what Beal can do, this should not happen and he should just demand the ball more. He's probably not going to average 30 again next to Russ, but this backcourt will be deadly. And again, they should be used like the 2019 Thunder duo was. We know Russ and Beal are going to be great, but how about the other Wizards? Guys like Thomas Bryant, Davis Bertans, Rui Hachimura, and Denny Adil will also have good contributions. And having bigs like Thomas Bryant, Davis Bertans as floor spacers is great for a Russell Westbrook-led offense. We know we need shooters around him, and while the wing shooters aren't the best on this team, having floor spacers in the front court with the big man duo helps the paint to not always be clogged, and we know Russell Westbrook needs the lane. The Washington Wizards drafted Denny Adil with their 9th pick, a guy who can contribute to the NBA game with his fundamentals and just overall feel for the game right away. He's not your normal rookie, and that's obvious in the way that he plays. We know Russ has been underwhelming in the playoffs since 2017, but we know what he could do in the regular season: carry a team and win games. Like we saw him do in his MVP season with Steven Adams as his number 2. Now with Bradley Beal in that second spot next to Russ, I'm excited for this Wizards team. They'll be fun to watch. Now when it comes down to playoff success, I don't think they're actually going to do much. I'll say a probable first round exit and a second round exit at their absolute ceiling. But again, they will be entertaining, and Westbrook gets to run his own offense once again. Look out for the Washington Wizards in this upcoming season. They may surprise me come playoff time. We really don't know what we're going to get from the Houston Rockets in this upcoming season. At this point, we know James Harden is gone, with the Rockets giving up on trying to convince him to stay, and they want to trade him sooner rather than later. And the three teams we hear the most are the 76ers, Brooklyn Nets, and Miami Heat. The Rockets only either want KD or Kyrie from the Nets, or Embiid or Simmons from the 76ers. And although at first Philadelphia didn't want to trade Embiid or Simmons, we've now heard some mixed signals from the NBA world on the situation. Woj came out and reported that the 76ers front office is willing to deal Simmons in certain packages for Harden, but then Daryl Morey, Philly's GM, came out and said that he is there to stay, so we really don't know if he's available or if he's going to be a Sixer for a while. And Ben Simmons will be the best player available, so it's probably Houston's best option. But before the news came out and before Houston gave up on trying to convince the Beard to stay, I thought the new look Rockets had a chance to convince their franchise player to return for another season. This Rockets team would have been the most offensively diverse team we had seen with Harden in Houston. With John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins looking good, and with Christian Wood high ceiling, Harden wouldn't have to do as much heavy lifting when it comes to creating offense. One of the big problems in Houston for D'Antoni's system has been how much the offense relies on James Harden to be amazing every single night. And I know every offense needs their star player to be great. Besides maybe Chris Paul or Russell Westbrook, throughout the years, Harden has created everything for everyone on the team. Just look at last year. Yes, Harden played with Russell Westbrook, but with other guys like Robert Covington, Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker, Daniel House Jr., Ben McLemore, Westbrook or Harden created everything for these spot-up shooters. But with bigs like Christian Wood and DeMarcus Cousins, instead of Covington and Tucker, I thought the Rockets really had some offense going other than Harden, and they did, and he wouldn't have to do as much. He wouldn't have to dominate the ball every single possession. But with this potential scenario now just becoming a what if, the Rockets kind of have an uncertain future. Now obviously they're going to get a haul back for Harden, so maybe that'll be enough for them to become a real serious threat in the West, but we really don't know. If they do end up getting Ben Simmons, I don't know how that will work with Wall. Now apparently they're trying to involve a third team, so maybe getting another all-star caliber player not named Ben Simmons is possible. But after the Westbrook-Wall swap, a roster featuring James Harden, John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, and Christian Wood sounded pretty promising to me. But with Harden gone sooner rather than later, the Rockets just got a whole lot less scary. In conclusion, the Russell Westbrook-John Wall trade left the Washington Wizards and Houston Rockets in very interesting positions. I'm much more optimistic about how the Wizards ended up because I think the Westbrook-Beal duo is going to be very good, and they're simply going to have an easier time competing because they're in the East. Now, if James Harden was committed to Houston, I would be much more optimistic about them too, but he's going to be traded very soon, and I can't imagine they're going to be great without him. These teams are in much different positions than they were in just a month ago. So let me know how you feel about both of these teams in the comments below. Let me know who you think really won this trade. Thank you guys for watching. This has been Rashad with Hoops Times 2. Hit the subscribe button if you want more NBA content like this. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Peace out.